Connections on Q, right here on Q95, the big station. We are grateful for our Dominicans, our friends of Dominica, and our adopted Dominicans who take time out of their busy schedules to share their expertise and experiences as we address topics of national and personal importance. So, as we all know, September is right around the corner. So that means it is back to school. It is the season for back to school in Dominica and most of the world, except if you live here in Georgia, where we went back to school the first week of August. So in Georgia and the South, we do things differently. We go back to school the first week of August, which is still technically summer. But for the rest of the world, including Dominica, the school season reopens in September. And for many of us, that means our children are getting ready to head back to school. We as adults, we may be getting ready to head back to college or maybe a professional training program. So the questions we are looking at today are, with so many Dominican households already struggling to meet basic expenses. I heard today again the gas prices have gone up in Dominica. Like electricity, everything is on the rise in Dominica. So in these tough economic times, how are our Dominican households making ends meet and financing supplies, the tuition and everything that our children need to return to school? So we're going to look at financing education at every level. So we're going to look from, the primary school level all the way to the college level. And we are joined by our panel this evening. Ms. Luana Laura from Finance Focus could not be with us this evening, but we have the honor of having Dr. Randy Glean. We also have Ms. Melissa Brown, and we have Mr. Felix Thomas Jr. joining us for this very important question. So how are you financing your education? Of course, if you're joining us on the Facebook Live, YouTube Live, as well as calling in on the radio station, we want to hear from you as well on this very important conversations. And are there some funding options that you may not have considered? So this is why our experts are here with us to potentially tell us about some financial options you may not have considered for financing your education as well as your children's education. So again, this is episode number 31 of Roots Connections on Q for today, August 24th, 2022, and I am your host, Simone Mathieu. If you're joining us on Facebook and YouTube, we say good evening to you. And if you're listening via the radio, but you want to get in on our very engaging and passionate Facebook Live conversation, you can always join us on Q95 FM radio, as well as Push Past 10 and on YouTube on Q95 FM radio. And I see that the Facebook folks are already coming in. David Joseph, great to see you. He says greetings and good night to each and every one. Looking forward to another great program. So don't forget, as you come in, share the live, let everyone know that we are here. So let us welcome our panel. They've all been with us before, and we are truly grateful again that they take time off of their busy schedules to make a contribution to our program. So we will have them unmute their mics and go ahead and introduce themselves and just kind of tell us a little bit about their experiences and expertise. So of course, we must start ladies first. Melissa Brown, you can go ahead.
Thank you. As you know, again, thank you. First of all, let me say thank you, Simone, for another opportunity to be on this program. I am, of course, Miss Melissa Brown. I am firstly a mother, a single female parent. I am a single female parent ambassador, firstly. I am trained in psychology, so I can be termed counselor, therapist, whatever you would like to. I prefer life coach because I cover an array of issues that come with life. I am a founder, an NGO founder, Women of Unique Distinction, geared towards single female parents and their children in 2018, we established a new program, an agricultural entrepreneurship program, which seeks to use agriculture as a form of entrepreneurship for single female parents. We also deal with their charges, their children, where we offer after school extracurricular activities. So, not just education, but across the board, pan, music, different arts, you know. I have my own practice. We focus on individual counseling, couples counseling, anything to do with mental health, consultation. It's called Abyssinian Brown and Associates. And lastly, well, I hope lastly, I am also the executive producer and the host of a traveling TV show, Our Story, highlighting social issues across the Caribbean. Um, so we are now currently here in Dominica. We are airing in on Digicel and also on Gael in Trinidad and across the Caribbean on Saturdays at 12:30. So I will stop there with who I am, but most importantly, I'm most proud about me being a parent, a mother.
Yes, and I can already tell that based on your experiences and your expertise, you will have a lot to contribute to the program. Dr. Glean, let's go over to you.
Hi, thank you, Simone, and good night, everyone. Yes, I'm Randy, and I have been in this world of international student services and education for most of my life, almost 30 years. And I am currently the Associate Vice President for Global Studies at Western Illinois University in Macomb, Illinois, a few hours away from Chicago. And I have been to Dominica many times, Grenadian mother, but I am an adopted Dominican from Bath Estate. And of course, I have had hundreds of students from Dominica and around the Caribbean. That number would be very close to 2,000 now that I've helped place in about 7 different universities over the years. So happy to join you for this discussion.
Yes, thank you very much. And Mr. Felix Thomas, over to you.
Yes, thank you for having me here as well, Simone. I am Felix Thomas. I'm a financial planner. I mainly work with families who have young kids, so I do specialize with helping families to save and invest for their kids' education. I've been doing it for 7 years now. I recently became a dad. My beautiful daughter is now 17 months. You know, I'm obsessed with her, and she's an amazing baby, full of energy and beautiful like myself and her mom. Okay. uh, um,
Congratulations.
oh, thank you, appreciate that. Um, I'm actually looking forward to this show to sharing what I actually help my clients with, as well as far as saving for their kids' education. And I can even give some of my own stories as to, like how I went forth with my own education as well, in funding and so forth. So, yeah,
Yes,
excited to be
thank
here.
you. And I think what we will discover, because Randy, we go back like 30 something years. I think what we're going to discover is what were the options back then have changed. Because, for example, and I'm getting ahead of myself because I think this is such a great conversation we're about to have. For example, when I first went to college in the US, I was able to get a job immediately. As soon as I landed, I got a job the next day. And I'm guessing that is probably no longer the option, that campus jobs are probably a little bit more challenging to come by. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. So let me kind of backtrack a little bit. So as always, we're grateful for Mr. G and the Q95 radio station for the opportunity to come together here every second and fourth Wednesday to tap into our human resources at home and abroad, just to talk about topics of national and personal importance. We are thankful for, I'm assuming Lambi will join us a little later, to help us with the phone calls and showing Norris. We're also grateful for you, and we say good evening for you for keeping us connected to Q95. So I like to think of this program as our very first step in reversing the brain drain that has plagued Dominica and the Caribbean, because now we have those of us who have left and are now willing to contribute back to our island and contribute back to our Caribbean region so that we can help with changes. Every field is changing. And so we can help to guide our Dominican brothers and sisters at home and abroad with these changes, but we can also show them the potential for financial benefits. So we look at every field, every sector, from agriculture to education to money and banking to culture, to see where are the opportunities for financial gain in this industry. So again, we want to thank the panel. We want to thank you on the Facebook Live. I see Dorian Dorival says, good evening, greetings to you all. Auntie Hummy is always there with us. She says, good evening, Dr. Mathieu and guests. I'm listening. So again, great to have you guys on. Share the live as you come on in, and let's jump right into the conversation. So I think it is very important to kind of get the scope of the issue that we are talking about this evening, the challenges many families are facing with funding education for their children, as well as parents who are looking to advance their education. So Melissa, I'd like to start with you this evening, because you're on the ground in Dominica, so you can give us a better sense of what is the situation you are seeing in Dominica.
I was very thankful for this opportunity because I do have an NGO. I listed all my qualifications. I listed everything. But at the present moment, I am on the ground literally because of social issues, and school is starting. And as a foreigner here, I myself have been affected, and I guess I'm trying to find, I am in that position where I need to find avenues outside of money to get my children to school as a foreigner. In April of this year, I took a bus from Trafalgar to my home. When I got home, I realized that my satchel with my passport, my daughter's passport, my son's passport was gone, along with $400. I called the person and I said, hey, I think my satchel would have slipped out in your bus. Could you come back and drop it? Can you check? And he said, well, I can't right now because I'm laying down. I'll check it in the morning. I said, okay, I can't force him. So I called him very early. When I called him, he said, oh, I haven't checked yet. I think after 6, 7 o'clock. As I hung up the phone, I got a text message saying I didn't get that. So I was forced to just accept the fact that my passports were gone. My documents were gone. I have no use for the money in the parcel. So since then, I've been a foreigner in this country since April till now, trying to sort out my IDs. The average cost to get home on a one-way for myself is almost 2,000 EC dollars. I
And
have
that's to get to
children.
Trinidad.
That's to get to Trinidad on a one-way. I have 2 children. My 2 children attend Dominican primary schools, which starts on September 5th. The cheapest flight out of Dominica leaves on September 10th. Now that puts me in a pickle, because how am I going to get my children to school and get to Trinidad as a foreigner? Now, it's not that I have not reached out to the proper avenues. I've even spoken to my minister in Trinidad, who allowed me to realize that there is a consulate in Dominica for Trinidad. Now, I've lived abroad and I've had to interact with the consulate in the US before, and I was able to receive a passport in the US from the consulate by them just taking my birth certificate to verify if I am indeed a Trinidadian, and then a document was issued to me. I am in Dominica. I am in Dominica presently, And there is a consulate I have contacted, and they're telling me that there's nothing they can do. Now, those are social issues that affect my ability to get my children to school. Now, if there's no intervention there, now my children will start to look like they're neglected. Yeah. I want to share this because this is what single female parents
Oh,
go through.
absolutely. And that's just a case scenario of what
Yes. Yes.
some of the people go
What
through in Dominica.
exactly on the ground. So I'm always thankful when I have these opportunities to become like a Dominican in essence, so that when I speak, I'm speaking truth. I'm not speaking secondary information here, right? So I'm saying at this present time, if I am to show you, this is my document that I was given from the police department stating everything that was stolen, everything. And then they had the nerve to insinuate that they do not know if what I am saying is true. And so, therefore, an investigation needs to be done before anything at all, any help. I was given this document from immigration that does not serve me at all because it says in French and in English, certificate of identify, meaning this should be able to identify me as Melissa Brown. So when I have my person, my mother who takes care of myself and my children when things are not going well, because of course I have clients. When my clients cancel and I have no money, I can call my mother and she can definitely send $1 for me. Now, when I'm in a country and I have to wait until September 10th to get to my country so that I can get an identification that allows me to collect money from my mother to get my children to school, that is a social issue. Now, this is just my issue. What else are women, single female parents going through at this present time that have them pulling their hair out? How am I going to get my child to school? So, yes, we can talk about all the other avenues that you can go to the bank, you can do this, you can do that. But what happens to the woman who doesn't have those avenues, who has no avenue at all and must just sit down and rely on a government to assist here so that I can take care of my children and I can send them to school? These
Yeah,
are
and I
things
think
that also affect the child, because a situation does not just affect a mother. It affects the child who trying to figure out. And I made so many notes about the time frame and where children are at 2 to 7 mentally, and trying to figure out, okay, they can't think like us. So when my son cannot get to school on time, he's thinking, oh, will I ever get to school? They do not have the ability and capacity to separate and know chronology and how things are going to play out beginning to end. They don't know the middle. So, being a mother that is going through a social issue, you also, thankfully, I have the tools to manage myself so that it does not affect the children. But what about the mothers and fathers out there that do not have the tools to navigate, number one, and number two, do not have the tools to manage their own anger in the situation of getting their child back to school? Because we like to think education is free, but it's not. Because if I have to buy school books, if I have to buy uniform, if I have to ensure that all these things are there in order to access education, then we need to stop the line, stop saying education is free.
Yeah, and I think, Melissa, you've already highlighted many important points, especially the social issues that hinder parents' ability to fully engage in their children's education. So I want to say we are truly sorry to hear that you're going through this situation, but we want to thank you for being very strong, especially for your children as you continue to work towards figuring out how your children will go to school this year. And this raises a very important
Just
question
one
that I
second.
want to bring.
1 second. Not just for me. I am the founder of Women of Unique Distinction. If I buckle under pressure, there are women that are looking at me now quietly, not just in Dominica, but in Trinidad, in my country. And if I buckle under pressure, they will feel and know that there is no hope for them. So it is more of voicing what's going on so that we can let those that are in power, those that can make a difference, can say, hey, listen, single female parents are not useless. We contribute to society and we need to be seen as such. That is why I'm a single female parent ambassador. You know, and women of unique distinction, we do not go around looking for those that look all fancy. I want the ones that look dirty. I want to spend that year and I want to help that woman become that diamond in the rough.
Absolutely.
Because that is what we need now. There are too many single female parents dealing with more than I have to deal with because there are no mothers to call. There are no fathers to call. And like on my TV show, I spoke about Gina and Dinah, Rosita and Clementina on the corner posing. Bet your
But
butt.
your life is something we're selling.
Thank you. So let me tell you the reality of a single female parent. If you are not strong, you will have to bend. And that is the reality of the society that we are in as Dominicans, as Trinidadians across the board, because we are nothing more than vaginas.
Yes, and I wanna take the conversation and open it a little bit more. So, Dr. Glean, let me come over to you because I think one of the underlying topics that I'm getting from Melissa is: do you think that primary school education should be free? So, should there be a system maybe in the Caribbean? And Felix, if you can hear us, I want to include you in that conversation as well. What are your thoughts on if primary school education in the Caribbean should be free?
Well, at the risk of sounding a little bit too idealistic, and for full disclosure, I have spent pretty much my entire life in North America, so my perspective may be skewed. I just want to put that out there. However, I have always known primary school education to be free, and that should be a universal goal. I didn't know of societies in the region or elsewhere in the West where primary school wasn't free. In fact, to the best of my knowledge, secondary education, I thought, was just about universally free in the Caribbean. I know for sure that free refers to the tuition aspect, the cost of school attendance. There are always going to be attendant costs. There's the bus fare. There are the uniforms,
the
and
books.
there are the books and other things. So I do know that certain governments have taken tremendous strides. If I can, without being overly political, I mean, I know quite a while back, at least 15 years ago, Barbados was at the point of giving laptops to students. So that's sort of like the upper echelon of education across. I mean, Barbados has a world-class education system, and perhaps arguably, again, without ranking, one of the more admirable systems in the Caribbean. But to my knowledge, and if I'm wrong, someone will correct me, the tuition aspect of primary school education has been universally free for some time.
Yeah,
I
that's
know
correct.
there's been an evolution to free, again, using the word free guardedly, secondary education. Yes, there are circumstances, and some of us have addressed those circumstances in personal ways and through NGO type structures or informal committees, tried to raise funds for quote unquote needy or disadvantaged children to attend school, because yes, giving them free tuition is only the beginning. There are many kids who can't get to the school, won't have lunch when they get to the school, won't be able to buy books or supplies because parents are limited. And so we do need to add a social dimension to correct those gaps. When we put the universal free secondary school in place, it will not necessarily reach all students on an even footing. In fact, it may well be that the poor taxpayer is subsidizing the wealthy taxpayers' children who perhaps are getting the benefit, and then the poor kids cannot. So certainly, it's one of those things that, if you ask me, the egalitarian perspective is absolutely it should be free. We don't know what the economic component is to making it free. All governments do not have equal resources. All governments do not have equal priorities in dispensing those resources. So the answer to your question is a short yes.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And when we consider the social situations that Melissa just described, we wonder, well, is there any assistance for those who can't afford the uniforms and the books and the bus fares? So, Felix, I want to come over to you for your thoughts.
Okay, so and if the educational system should be free for primary and secondary, so to my knowledge, I mean, I went to primary school and secondary school in Dominica. To me, the majority of the primary and secondary schools are free in Dominica because they're public, right? But I mean, I know that I went to a Catholic primary school and also a Catholic high school where we did have to pay for terms. So I know that we had to pay for those. So I mean, I think there's like the school system for everyone where it's like there's a free section and there's a paid section,
Yeah.
so to speak, for the school system. So I mean, the reason why I don't think like the tuition part of it is currently an issue. I think it's what Dr. Glean was speaking of is what the issue is like how a lot of the students don't have that access, the like the uniforms and also the bus fees, because I lived very far from school. Well, to me, it's not very far right now because I live in Canada and everywhere is far in Canada, to be honest. But I remember I remember where I was living, like I would see people coming all the way from Marigot or La Plaine, Dailies and all those places to get to Roseau. And how early you have to get
Oh,
up to do all what you have to do, put on your uniform and everything, and then you have to pay. I don't know what the bus fare is now, but I think it was like $10 one way, to get to the city, right? And that is rough because that is 5 days a week you have to do it. So that is like $20 a day. That is $100 a week in just bus fares, right? And then $400 a month, on average. So I can see how that part would be sort of like a barrier. At the same time, I know that there's people who would still make things work, right? If you cannot afford the bus system, you end up having to bomb a ride, you know, or something like that, right? So um, I don't know if I'd make a change to how like the tuition fee section is. I think what I'd make a change to, it's like um, the assistance, if there's some kind of funding that could be provided to assist those who are not fortunate enough to actually get the bus, or if there's like some kind of central bus system for people who are very far away, if they could qualify for something like that, like some kind of stipend to actually pay the bus, then that I think would be a good start for it, and also have something similar for the uniforms as well, because I think the uniform option would be more affordable than buying like your own clothes, like if they just have the ties, because that one tie could use in an entire week, really and truly, if you have to, right? So all you have to buy is really just two ties. You have 5 shirts, you have probably 2 khaki pants or whatever pants you have, and that would help, as opposed to you having to dress differently every single day. And in Dominica, if you wear a one top today and you wear that top last week, somebody going to call you out on that.
oh yeah.
Right? So I think in Dominica it's better to use the uniform, for even like the peer pressure too. So
Right.
yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, yeah, and you're correct, because when I went to school, I went to a Catholic school, and there were
Yeah.
fees
Yes.
associated with going to the private Catholic school. So maybe someone on the Facebook Live or someone will call in to let us know if that is still the case. Because in the Catholic schools, you had to cover the tuition, the books, the uniform, and the bus fare. So Melissa, I want to come back to you because I think we've already touched on quite a few topics already. Now, have you looked at any potential assistance for getting your kids back to school? Is there anything that's available in Dominica that parents maybe are not aware of, where you can seek assistance to get your children the supplies they need? I've heard about a voucher program that is quite controversial, so I'm just wondering if there's anything else that parents who truly are in need can reach out to for assistance?
You know what? I find that when it's like a double-edged sword. We want persons to get off the public system. That means there's a level of education that needs to be pumped into persons, a level of support, but yet still there's nothing being done. And when situations like what I am going through, which is an official document that needs to be rectified, I persons are telling me, hey Melissa, don't talk too much. Just go and drop your paper down there, right? And you'll get your children's school books. But what happens after children's school books is gotten? What happens every day when they come home? In school, you can pay $1 and you can get lunch at school. Thankfully, I'm thankful for that. But what happens when that child comes home at night and there's nothing to eat? What happens when that child doesn't have anything to eat before the child leaves for school? So, yes, I get what you're saying. Are there any support systems for me to get my uniforms? But education is more than a uniform.
Right.
Education is, where is that child? So that's what I'm saying. I'm glad you invited me, because oftentimes we look at education through a one narrow view. There is a concept, preoccupational, a point in every child's life where they're stuck in this narrow view. They can't see anything else. And sometimes I think society has become like children, where we say, hey, go and get this, but you're not taking into consideration that what happens when the child is at home. What happens when I cannot feed my son and my daughter in a couple of days because I cannot access anything anymore? What happens when a child is stuck because they cannot see the future like we can see the future, and they leave home not eating, and they're wondering, I wonder if I'm going to eat when I get home? That informs and also is a contributing factor to someone being successful in education. So if we're talking about education, we're talking about everything that goes together to form a person. Now, there are different theories. I love Aaron Bronfenbrenner. He created the ecological model, and it places the person at the middle, the self, and then it shows how the mesosystem and all these different systems interrelate to create this person. The Caribbean, we have throughout the CARICOM, we have this ideal person. I don't know if you guys have ever read it. There is a document that dictates and says what the ideal Caribbean person looks like. Guess what? We're not there because we are still so narrow-minded, and we're not seeing all the other things that affect a child when that child is being educated. So yes, there are avenues so that I can get a t-shirt, a school shirt. But what happens when that child comes home to me and I cannot give that child food because I have no document to get to any sort of financing that I am used to? Single female parents end up in poverty. 80% of single female parents end up in poverty due to non-payment, due to all these different issues. And single female parenting, if you look at the homes, and juvenile delinquency and teen pregnancies, and all these things come out of single female parent homes.
But then it sounds like you're speaking to a bigger topic of employment
No, because
and opportunities.
is that,
for work.
Simone, education is that. That is my
Right.
thing. Education is that, because when I have, and not me, thankfully, I have the tools to navigate certain things with my children's mind. So I am not an average mother. So I would sit and I would speak to my child and I say, hey, baby, this is what's going on right now, because they can't understand when the house is in turmoil. They cannot understand that. That is education. If you have a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old who is leaving a home every day, not knowing how they're going to eat, or the only point of eating every day that they're guaranteed to have is going to that school, then that is education, Simone. And if we keep thinking of education and getting the child to school, there's so many students that I've seen in Dominica that get to school not ready, and then they flunk out, and then we wonder why are they on the roadside. So that is education, because there are a lot of young boys that just didn't have the right support system, and they're on the street corners because guess what, we didn't see where they were mentally, where they were traumas. I'm also trained in trauma. I'm a trauma specialist, both children and adolescents. So when I tell you trauma is just like alcoholism, when it happens at the point, they remain there. So imagine how many students are going to school traumatized. So yes, like Randy said, social support in the schools need to be more present. There needs to be a linkage of, okay, yes, I can get you the books, but what else is going on in your home that's going to hinder this child from being successful? So education is not that narrow preoccupational way of thinking where we think as children we now need to graduate and see the same way we have multiple intelligences, and we know that children don't learn the same, and we have now had to amend our educational systems because of that. We need to now know that education is more than getting to the building, because some persons do not have what it takes to get to the building. We are
Yes.
born into this world, some born with gold spoons, some born with silver spoons, some born with none at all. What are you going to tell those who are born with none at all and they want to get to that education there, but
Yeah.
they cannot get there?
And
So,
and I'm happy that you've expanded our understanding on
education.
what education is. But Felix, I want to come to you, and then Dr. Glean, I want to come to you as we start talking about traditional approaches for financing education. But before I do, Felix, I want to come to you because I think Melissa is making some so important points about broadening our notion, broadening our concept of what we think of when we think of getting our children that education we need. And what comes to mind as she talks about, her mom's ability to support her when she needs to, is how maybe you and I grew up, Felix, in terms of the barrel economy. Because we struggled too, and we had to rely on my aunt in Guadeloupe to send the books, to send well, not the textbooks, but the notebooks, the pencils, the bags, the shoes, to be able to have us go to school. So I'm sure you probably experienced the same thing, Felix, as well. And I'm just wondering if that still exists, because for some of us, that is how we were able to afford to go to primary and secondary school. Felix?
Yeah, so I do remember we receiving barrels which came with exercise books, pens, crayons, and all that's good stuff, you know. Um, for the most part, I think my parents did a good job in actually being able to afford the school system and sending myself and my siblings to school. But I mean, I cannot speak for all the help that they got because I was just a child and basically unaware of, like the finances in the house, because I mean, it's not something that a lot of parents really talk to their kids about. So I cannot talk much on like what my parents did, but I just know that we did have the stuff that we needed in order to attend school. Um, and I remember going to it was Jay's bookstore that we had to go to get our textbooks, exercise books and so forth at times. So I don't think that was a problem on my side. So I don't think I'd be the best person to speak on that, to be honest. But as far as it, I think like parents do need to take, like both mom and dad, do need to take some kind of accountability for, hey, you know what? We have our child now. I think when you have a child, that's kind of like your priority. Like I have a daughter now, and I'm telling you straight, if I will starve if like she's going to eat before me for sure. you know that's just guaranteed. She's going to be the one surviving, not me. you know so I know that whatever I have to do, like, I mean, a lot of it, I think people try to make it a bit way too complicated as far as, like meeting the child needs. I think the most important thing the child really needs from the parents is really their time and attention. I think that's the most important thing. The finances is very important. It's basically the next important thing because they have to eat. It's money that's going to get the food, and they have to go to school, right? So as far as affording those things, I think the best thing to do is really start planning for it as soon as the child is born. You know, for as an example, my daughter is currently 17 months, and for probably if she's 17 months now, I would say for probably like 15 months, I've already been saving for her education because I don't know what she wants to be. But all I know, whatever it is that she wants to be, I don't want her to come and say, hey, dad, you know what? I need $100,000 for me to start my doctor degree. And I go in and tell her I don't have it. No, to me, I would be letting down my daughter. And that is one thing I don't ever want to do, you know? So I starting to save for it from now because I already know it's a little star I have there. If she have my blood in her, she's a star already, you know. So I go and make sure that she reach whatever it is that she needs to reach. So that is the kind of dedication I will put towards my child, you know. And it's the same kind of thing that I believe her mom would do as well, you know, because she's an awesome mom as well, you know, my girl. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
point.
and Dr. Glean, I
Yes,
want to
your
come to you,
question.
but I can tell Melissa has to
Yes,
jump
yes,
back
because when
in
you
when, especially when Felix said all children need is your time. So Dr. Glean, just hang tight. Let me have Melissa respond because I can tell she wanted to say something to Felix.
when I say I'm a single female parent ambassador, I am that. Because there are certain and I love English and I love to sit and just pick apart words and what words do to us as a people. Yeah. So when Felix, the emotions and I'm getting from Felix is that when he's speaking or what people will perceive, I can be wrong, is that you have it set. But if I take away your money right now, Felix, right, that makes you comfortable to have what you need for your child, and you were brought to the level of the average Dominican, would you be okay with that? With
No,
just giving your child time
no,
and
no one would,
nothing else? Yes
no,
or no?
no one would be
So
okay with that.
why do you expect other persons to not have what you have? That is the problem with the
That's, I
systems.
don't think you're listening properly
And no, no,
because
no.
that's not what I said.
But
Okay,
I'm
I
asking
let
you
him,
said,
because as a
Melissa,
single female
so,
parent,
Melissa, allow him to
so,
respond.
so the first thing I said is the most important thing. I never said it's the only thing. It's the most important thing.
it's
The
not.
time.
It's not.
Well,
It is
that's your
that
Let him,
perspective,
because
which
Melissa,
I
you have
Melissa,
the
respect.
Melissa, give him a
finances
minute.
I
already.
I respect your
Melissa, give him a
perspective.
minute.
Yeah.
I respect your perspective, you know, but in my perspective, the time is the most important thing. Okay, in my perspective.
Thank you for
So,
sharing your
and then
perspective.
I did say that finances is basically something that is very important as well. I did say that, right? Okay, so I never said it's just one. It's really
Yes,
not
and
one.
I also want to
You
give
can-
I want to give Dr. Glean an opportunity to chime in if he has any thoughts on that as well, because he has like thousands of adopted children.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I like to speak to things where I have discernible expertise, and I really don't know that this area, what my experiences would not necessarily enhance this discussion. Relatively speaking, to what I know and what is the current reality, I may have grown up in a different circumstance in a different part of the world where education and all that attends to it were free. I mean, our books were free, schooling was free all the way up through secondary school. And my mom probably simply had to give me $5 a week to pay the bus and eat lunch. And that's back in the day. That could do it back then, by the way. $5 a week could have been enough back in those days. But it does resonate in that it's more like the stories I would have heard about my mom's experience growing up in Grenada in the 50s and going to secondary school as the child of a poor single mother. So it resonates in that sense. And one of the stories that she never told me, but my grandmother told me, was of stuffing cotton in her oversized shoe so my mom could have a quote unquote good shoe to go to school because my grandmother couldn't afford to buy one. So I certainly can relate to that, though a generation earlier. It hadn't been my experience. because by the time I came along, I guess, my mother having gone to secondary school that early, then obviously you know what education does. Then it put her in a position where I could have had a slightly better circumstance. And then, of course, I am, like all of you, a parent. In addition to my thousands of adopted kids, I did manage to produce one, and I did have to foot an enormous bill, even from a position of privilege working in the university. Even when my daughter attended that school, I did have to find the money. So I wanted to just add one thing, though. I mean, there are variations, though, Melissa, as well, in terms of what is a single mom. By my own choice and decision, I did cause a woman to live life as a single mother. She is the mother of my daughter, but her experiences won't sound like yours because I was a responsible father, and one can still be a responsible father even within that construct of not raising a child 24/7 yourself. We certainly had agreements that were met. And I knew even when I was a graduate student, I had to financially contribute, which I did. And at the point when I became self-sufficient, by the time my daughter was ready for tertiary education, it was clearly understood that that was going to be 100% my responsibility, which I undertook. So there are two categories of I think single mothers. Is the one that's left to fend for herself versus the one that does have that reasonable, responsible, respectful male who, although he didn't marry her, he certainly took the responsibility for the offspring or offsprings, if it were, that were produced from that relationship. So I just wanted to make that distinction.
Yes, yes. Back to you, Melissa, and then we're going to talk about tertiary education, college, university education. Yes, Melissa.
I have one point, and that's just statistics. I heard everything you said, but reality is that in 1950, the U.S. Census Bureau had they actually had statistics like 9 million. Over 9 million children living in homes at that time. They would live with a single parent. Out of that 9 million, 8 million of those come out of single mother homes. So yes, we understand that there are fathers that step up, but in 1970 there was only 800,000 fathers who stepped up to that level. And this is US Bureau Census. Now, right now, 2010 says that 80% of women living 80% of children under the age of 18 are living in homes of single female parents. So, yes, I do not want to negate the fact that there are men that step up. But the reality is, when we talk about going back to school and education, the ones that are being most affected by are mothers. And that is the truth. And statistics says that. So that
Yes.
is why it is important. That is why speaking about single mothers at this time is important, because the ones that are being most affected, according to statistics in 1970, were women, mothers. That was 1970. We are now in 2022, where nothing has changed for the better. So how many children are now in single female parent homes getting ready for school? Now let's talk about how the hourly rate pay affects education. If we are living from hand to mouth because the average rate of pay is $7, then when school comes about and we have that extra pump or injection of cash needed to get that child into school, what do we let flop to the side? Do we let the bills go to the side? Because what are we going to do? Let's be realistic here when we are speaking about education and getting children back to school. If I'm making $2,000 a month and my rent is 1,500, and then I have children to feed, and then I have to get to school, and then school time comes around, but then I have to now find the extra money to get books and uniform. Let's be realistic. I know some of us come from good homes. That is true. There are good homes out there, but statistics show that we have too many, more single female parent homes than any other type of household out there. So when we're speaking about education and getting children back to school, you are speaking to mothers. You are speaking to a couple of fathers, yes, but truly, women are obligated. That is why Sparrow was able to say Jean and Dinah, Rosita and Clementina, because guess what? When a child has to go to school, and there is no daddy, there is always a man there willing to give it if a woman is willing to give it up. Let's be real. I am a single female parent ambassador. I've spoken to too many women who have divulged too many things that is real. And thankfully, thank the grace of the good universe that kept me. But what if I buckled?
Yeah, and I want to thank you again, Melissa, for just bringing the social context into this conversation. But, one of the things I like to explore on this program is just how things are changing. So what was traditionally a certain field, a certain area, and how it has evolved. And I think with over 30 years of experience, Dr. Glean, you might be able to guide us on this one. So traditionally, we're going to talk about how we traditionally funded education, because a lot of it when I went to college was loans and hoping to get a scholarship. So let's just talk about the traditional approaches and how things have changed, how things have evolved. For example, maybe you can speak to us about, the qualification for being accepted into a university in the US back in the 90s when I went to university, as opposed to the financial qualifications now. Has the qualifications increased? Do you have to show more money now? Do you have to show less money? So let's take the conversation from there, Dr. Glean.
Thank you, Simone. That's a lot closer to my comfort zone in terms of
Yes.
an alleged knowledge base. So
yes, thank you for hanging in there with us, and thank you for sharing the U.S. experience as well.
Sure. And yeah, I can certainly speak, and I think in some ways to North America, but 1994, 95, when you were looking at the possibilities, even though the dollar figure seemed a lot less relative to incomes then, it was actually almost as expensive as it is today. Mm-hmm. So here are the thoughts. Here's where the evolution has happened. Many U.S. universities didn't quote unquote know or choose to know the Caribbean the way they do now. Many of them have been enlightened as to how great the students are in the Caribbean, and we're now a desirable commodity. So they're making an effort to seek us out. Back in your day, you were seeking the universities and grabbing the first one that came along, basically. Now you have choices. I am very active in making sure, and I will continue to make certain that as many universities as possible come down to the Caribbean and offer opportunities so we can broaden the scope in terms of choices for students. So let's start with how do we go about finding the money? And I will try to inculcate a little bit of the earlier conversation to speak to that person who is challenged, as well as to those who may have been able to plan or have support. Something has happened from your day to today, and I've observed it being actively engaged in the process. There seems to have been an increased dependence or reliance or expectation that this commodity should be provided by someone other than yourself and your family. In other words, and I think specific to Dominica, I think I've observed that there is a general belief or expectation that higher ed, tertiary education is something that government should provide. Well, may not be unrealistic because Barbados certainly allows Barbadian students to attend Caveville campus free. And I believe that might also be the case to some extent in Trinidad for St. Augustine. So that's not extreme. In Grenada, for example, Grenadians can go to St. George's, very often highly subsidized or in many cases almost free. So that again is a great thing when you can get it. But if you are in Dominica and you are expecting to go to school in the United States, I'll speak to the US because I think Felix will speak to Canada. I'll speak to you. You're wanting to go to school. The first thing is to stop thinking about higher ed in terms of cost. It really is an investment. You shouldn't undertake it if it's a cost. If you do not believe that this is something that will pay dividends, then it's a bad investment. You're better off spending your time and your money investing in a business in Dominica, or let's be clear about what education is for you PhDs and you elitists. Let's be clear. Education can also be vocational education. It's
Yes.
very important that young people understand that well a well-trained and experienced plumber would actually make more than a beginning physician or a college professor in
Mhm.
markets in North America. Or if you are very good in other skilled trades like construction, your market is you get to define yourself, you get to be independent, and you can earn just as much. I think the British spoiled us with this elitist construct that we all need to be highly educated and wear a tie and walk around, and then we sort of disrespect people with real skills that are needed to build economies. I, for one, have developed a great appreciation, and I tell people with real skills that I can read, write, and talk. That's what I do well. But if you put me in front of a machine to do something, I'm probably completely lost. Yes, I have some technology skills. I'm a little unusual in that sense, but I don't have a lot of motor skills. I don't. I'm a very awkward person. So you need to recognize where your skill set is and develop from there. If academics is where you want to go, though, the funding prospects are many. So think of it as an investment that will pay off. And then it's not a cost because you're going to get it back for 30, 40, or 50 years to come after you've completed that degree. Here's why universities knowing the Caribbean matter. Now you can attend the Dominica State College, or you can do CAPE through Lead Institute, or independently if you wish. You can do that platform very low cost, highly and heavily subsidized by government. So there is really not many excuses other than, of course, some students will still have the challenge of getting from Marigot, as pointed out earlier. There are some unforeseen expenses that may limit others. But in terms of the tuition aspect, you can, if you could board in town or stay with a relative or other ways to make it work, you can attend Dominica State College. Most US institutions now will accept those credits. So what you have effectively done is shorten the time you need to spend in university in the States, whereas Simone, those in your era spent the full 4 years because you went to Clifton Dupany at the time. You may have done a couple A levels, got a few little credits here and there, but you basically were still in a 4-year regime. Those students coming from Dominica State College, at the very least, are in a 3-year regime. That's step one. Another thing to consider is you do not have to run off immediately to attend university, even if your plan is to go to the States. You can certainly engage online. And why is that advantageous? Because you completely remove the cost of room, board, health insurance, miscellaneous, incidentals, even the travel. You remove all these subsidiary costs, and you are in mom's home. You are attending online. Technology and the Wi-Fi in your house allows you to do that. So now you're paying just tuition, and you can do so for a year and get closer to graduation, such that when you get to the US, you now have 2 years possibly. And these are things we offer. Western Illinois has such an option. And you can still get all the benefits of getting a degree in the United States, the work permits and the opportunity to build a life after graduation and partake in the US economy. I'll cut it here. We can get back to some other thoughts, but I think I'll throw it back so I don't get into too much of a monologue.
Yes, and thank you so much, Dr. Glean. Felix, we talked about the US, Canada. Let's go over to Canada, and you can tell us, what has changed. How are you now advising your clients a little differently from what you may have told them a couple of years ago? And I think I like where you started off, the importance of starting early. Because
Yep.
like we started our daughter's education fund when she was very young. So the importance of starting early. So I think you can probably take it up from there.
Yes. Yeah. Starting early is what I think that's going to be like a lifelong principle. As long as there's going to be money involved to go to school, I think it's very important that parents do start off saving early for their children. Um, the dialogue hasn't really changed since I've been giving financial advice on that. For me in particular, I remember my first year of college here in Canada. My dad helped me out with it, right? And then the second, third, and fourth year, I had to like go through that myself. Now, I can remember there was a time I was having some real financial difficulty because I was faced with like a tuition of about $10,000. And at that time, I did not want to take a student loan just because I was scared of having a loan that high at such a young age, right? But then going back to what Dr. Glean said, I actually liked what he said when you basically have to change the way that you look at it as an investment. Now, I was going to school to be an accountant, and I heard that accountants made a lot of money. So at that point, I was like, yo, you know what? That is $10,000 that I'm going to be investing in myself. But however, what I did though, I did take another step where I actually went into the financial aid office. I booked an appointment with one of the officers there, and they were very helpful. Like they actually sat me down and helped me to build a budget, and also to calculate, because I was actually working while I was going to school as well. They helped me to calculate, my income, my expenses, and everything. And with that, they were able to say, okay, you know what? We can see that you're able to cover this, and we're going to help you with X amount of dollars. So at that time, I got like, I think it was between 1,500 and $2,000 worth of bursary, and then I had to take the rest as a student loan. And even after that, I did not even go to the financial assistance anymore just because I started looking at it as an investment. And I was saying to myself, hey, you know what? This is going to pay off one day. Now, just fast forward to like my graduation. I graduated with about $22,000 in student debt, and that was scary to me. So that fear that I had with having all that debt to my name, and I think I was only about 23 at that time. I was like, man, no, how am I going to do this, right? And then I basically started working at the bank, which enhanced my financial knowledge. And over the course of 1 year, I ended up paying up that entire $22,000, because that's just how bad, like, that's just how scared I was of that debt. And then after that, it was just blessed, because after paying off your student debt, I feel you get some kind of relief, some sense of relief. And you feel like, okay, now it's like you're free to do so many more things. But I think I actually needed that experience as well. So, what I would say to parents as well is don't go spoiling your kids. Let them have some kind of difficulty in a sense. Let them struggle in a sense as well, because I struggled with it, and that struggle that I had, it actually helped me to be more responsible with my money and how I managed it. Like, since I actually had to kind of fight with financial assistance to get the money, not really fight, but like I had to do extra stuff in order to get that bursary, right? It actually helped me in other areas where I'm dealing with money, you know. So going back to the parents as well, as soon as
Melissa, I'm coming to you.
yeah, as soon as parents have kids, I basically have there's a designated education fund that is actually it is semi-funded by the government of Canada as well, where they basically match 20% for the least of what you actually contribute into it, up to a certain amount. All right, so that actually helps. And over the lifetime of the child, you can put up to $50,000 into it, right? And they're matching like 20% of that for you. So that's basically a bonus. And if you start from very young for the kids, that money grows and it compounds, right? So since it compounds, it actually helps you to have a substantial amount of money there that you could use for your kids' education. And it doesn't have to be just for the tuition. It will help with the bus fees, or in buying a vehicle for your child, paying for, like, if they have to go to school far away, it will pay for that as well, their accommodation and so forth. So I think these days you really have to just start early. You can't wait until last minute for it. If you wait until last minute, then the only thing I can really think that you would have to do is really take a student loan, to actually fund schooling, unless if your child is basically some kind of high achiever and they're able to get a scholarship, for having high grades or being athletic or something of that sort, then it's better off that you actually just prepare for your child yourself.
Yeah, and I think you guys are making some very good observations, because part of what I'm hearing is that we need to change our perspective. So the
Yeah.
same way Dr. Glean mentioned about looking at it as an investment, and the same way, you were concerned about the debt, but realizing we have to change our perspective and see this more as an opportunity to invest that will be returned. And then I also want to talk about, because we just heard today about the debt forgiveness of the loans. So that is something else I'm hoping we can touch on, Dr. Glean, at some point. But Melissa, I want to come to you for your thoughts.
I'm not going to take too long because I hear all of that and I acknowledge Felix. Felix, let me tell you something. When I had to go to school in Trinidad, I love my island. I would never want to be from any other island because gate is free. Yeah? All of these things is free. But if I did not have what it took to access that free gate, I would not be educated right now. Meaning, if every semester I did not have $1,000, $1,200 to cover all other fees, I would not be educated right now. Felix, I get from you that you come from a family. If you don't have everything, you had more than what the average person has in Dominica. Am I right or am I wrong?
You are wrong.
I'm wrong?
Yep. I guess you were not
Okay.
there for the entire story, but you're wrong.
Felix, did you grow up having issues having to get to school? I heard the story. You said you had no recollection of having to pay for education when you went to school. Am I wrong or right?
So that was when I was speaking of primary and
But that is what,
secondary
in
school.
order to get to university, Felix, we have to get through primary first. There are a lot of students right now that needs to get to primary school, but they have social issues that surround them and they cannot get there. So that means there are a lot of students right now that are on the corner that were not able to access education. And yes, we like to say that the young boys are delinquent and they could do better. And you said even saving, but how am I going to save, Felix, when I don't have the dollar to put there? If I only
But
have
I also think,
$2,000.
Melissa, if I might interject, we have to kind of, honor everybody's story. So your
I
experience
am
may
honoring
be
everyone's
different from
story.
Felix's
Simone, and let me
experience.
finish. And I'm not being
So I think
disrespectful.
we
I
just
just
have
want
to
to
look at
finish
it.
because many of times why I am stressing on this, and I would like to say most people would say, oh, it's because she is this. No, I experience certain things. Actually, if I wasn't fired for being pregnant out of wedlock, I would not be sitting here having the experience of the average Trinidadian single female parent or the average Dominican parent. I didn't come when you check my background, I have certain support systems that allowed me to be successful. Yeah, you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I also know that across the street from me, there's a young lady, same age as me. Her mother died at the age of 10, so that she wasn't able to access education. She had no support systems. Now she's a single mother with 3 children. She cannot help her 3 children without the education level.
Yeah, but I
So I
also
want to
think,
say that a lot of times that we speak about things, but we want to hush those, even if it's in a minority. If we want to say it's in a minority, I am here. I am a single female parent ambassador. So when I speak from that at all times to bring awareness to what is going on.
right, and
Most
that is
times
in,
it comes across as combative though, because I think that we always have persons telling us to save, but no one really willing to accept that if I do not have something to save. So you want me to say, of course, you're saying, let's look at different views, but no one has yet to say, hey, this is a view that affects the majority of children. And what are we doing to support these children and women? Because we
and and
know we're
and
going back to education, we're going back to school.
yes, and Melissa,
Right?
this is why we have these conversations,
Yeah.
because we're hoping that the powers that be can hear all the
I
concerns
hope
and
so.
all this the case
But it
scenarios,
becomes
and there
slanted,
can be an
and
intervention.
the voice of the single female parent gets hushed or quieted when other persons say things like, "Oh, you can find a way." What happens to the single female parent that cannot find a way? That's why women of unique distinction is there, because guess what? We have found other ways.
Yeah, and
Now, how do you
we need more like you to step up and
exactly?
find
So that's why
other
I
ways as
speak,
well.
and I speak proudly because I know that there are women there. Yes, I understand everyone's perspective. Trust me, I do not have prior to being fired because I was pregnant out of wedlock. I did not have this perspective. And I'm thankful for this. I'm thankful for experiences that dropped me and humble me, because I would have probably been like some other women that turn around and say, I wonder what, or snub their nose up
Right.
and not really try
Absolutely.
to understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Most single female parents, guess what? If you dig their background, they are traumatized as children.
Mm-hmm.
So then there are more things that you're looking for. So education could never be one thing. And you
Mm-hmm.
cannot talk about university if you cannot make it to primary school because of
Absolutely.
other things. So
But we have to
I'm
talk
just
about
saying, every time I
university
speak,
because
Felix speaks from his paradigm. When
yes,
I speak from my paradigm,
yes,
which
but
so I'm just explaining. Yeah.
yes, let me jump in real quick, Melissa. So I think we have to look at your perspective as well. But the point of the program is to look at education at every level. So we have to explore the university level as
Of
well. And we
course.
have to take some calls.
Of
So I'm
course.
not sure if DJ Shan is anywhere close by to give out the phone numbers so that our callers can call in. And we have lots of comments on the Facebook Live. So we're going to take your comments. And then when we come back, I want to talk about other traditional approaches like the 529 plan. Dr. Glean, Felix, I know you guys are in this space. So what are your thoughts on that? The potential for getting jobs when you attend college, is that still an option? And what are we seeing? I know on one program, Dr. Glean, you had mentioned, stop looking for the big scholarships and start looking for potentially smaller scholarships that all add up. Stop waiting for the government, maybe of Dominica, to completely fund your education. So that is the point, to speak on other options that we have for financing our education. And again, I want to thank everyone who are joining us via Q95 FM radio, as well as on Facebook and YouTube Live. So let's take a minute to engage our callers, jump on the Facebook Live, and then we will come back with these questions. So DJ Sean, are you around? I don't see you.
I'm there, Simone.
Hey.
All right. All right. Roots connection and Q. The numbers are 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, and 616-4257. And if you're calling from the overseas line, 305-432-9624. Let me repeat those numbers again. The numbers are 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257, 305-432-9624.
Yes. So while we're waiting your phone calls, let's see what's going on Facebook. And again, we want to thank our Facebook audience who never lets us down. You're always here to make a significant contribution to the program. So good evening, Nixie Alfred, Dion Filbert, the trucker is here. Great to see you. Anita Adams, thank you for being here. Margelle Durant, thank you for being here. Jennifer Cuffey, my aunt Ziska Frederick, Owen Prosper. Let's take some comments. DJ Shan, just interrupt me if any calls come in. So let's see, where should we start? Thief Francis, the little girl have the documents. Trinis, okay, that's just a random thought on what Melissa was showing us. Romic, it's still the same. I think she was referring to back when we were talking about the fees for school. Glenda Shillingford, great to see you. Blessings to all. Hi, Simone. Nice to see you, Glenda. Aromic says, but they're a book and uniform.
All right, Simone, sorry to interrupt you, but I think we're having a caller.
Yes, go ahead.
Q95, hello, good night.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening.
Simone, blessings to you, darling.
Same to you.
And those on the panel. I am not wanting to be rude or disrespectful, because nothing there would justify my being rude or disrespectful. But just a quick interjection. The reasoning, a little imbalance and arrogance from one side. And I think we really need to exercise humility. Don't matter how much we are imprisoned in our own convictions, or the views need to be contained respectfully. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, caller. I appreciate your contribution to the program. Let us know if we have any other comments coming in, DJ Sean. David Joseph says, in Dominica especially, we seem to operate in a vacuum and see things through a keyhole while ignoring the wide open door. Narrow-mindedness, partisan political allegiance, and ignorance is killing us. Margel Duran, in terms of transportation, the UWP government gave duty-free on buses used to transport school children from the rural areas to Roseau. Presently, the government is paying some bus drivers to transport the kids to Roseau. David Joseph, as a sinless parent of 6, my mother, I think you meant a single parent of 6, my mother was able to send us to school without any assistance from any government or PAL rep, because though things were difficult back then, the environment was present whereby most people were able to earn a livelihood in some way, shape, or form. Jess says, tell me about it, sister. Been there, done that. Very hard. Absolutely. So I think she's speaking to Melissa's experience with being a single mom. David Joseph, the facts are what they are, and the facts are that too many men have absconded their responsibilities as fathers. We simply cannot continue to leave the burden of raising our children.
Sorry to disturb you again, but we have in the next caller.
Sure, go ahead, Sean.
Q95, hello, good night.
Hello, great evening. I'm calling to make a contribution.
Yes.
Okay, very interesting program, and just want to commend everyone for their views, but just in particular to what Melissa Brown said. I am a single parent, and I'll be very honest, I didn't learn much about the avenues available for single parents out there who are trying to get onto, let's say, the education platform. And I just felt like you were attacking Felix Thomas a bit too much, because we have to respect each and everyone's upbringing and what they did. And I know Felix personally, and he didn't have a golden spoon in his mouth. And like he rightfully said, if everything was given to him on a platter, I don't think he would be where he would be today. So I think we should just appreciate that everyone's coming from different backgrounds, upbringing, and we can all learn something from each and every individual on the panel tonight. Thank you.
Yes, Melissa, I'll come to you in just a minute. Let me finish read that comment. So we simply cannot continue to leave the burden of raising our children on the backs of the mothers to raise while we are out there having a good time. So this is from David Joseph. As a child of a single mother, I promised myself to never have children here, there, and everywhere. And thankfully, I kept true to my word. Auntie Ziska, good evening to you. She says she's watching. Flower Sydney, right, Doc. Hermelina Watson, I think she's a little too combative. And I think I saw my mom earlier. So good evening, Mrs. Medina Senhouse. Roy Labad, great to see you. David Joseph, Hermelina Watson, she may seem combative, but that is because she is frustrated as a single parent, understanding the indignities that so many single mothers have gone through raising children on their own. Marshall Lawrence, always great to see you. Good evening, Dr. Simone, and yes, watching and listening. Don X says, I think along with what she is saying is there is a psychological support system missing. Mental health, so using the example she used regarding the young lady whose parents died, was there any grief counseling, etc.? I, too, was a single mom, divorced, and tried to continue my university education and had to drop it. So I understand where she's coming from. Getting mental health support is what is missing from our Dominican society Too many times teachers label children as talkative, etc. Thank you so much, everyone, for your contribution. So, Melissa, I'm going to come to you, and then I want to go around the table for just some general thoughts on the comments that came in on the Facebook Live, as well as the phone calls. Melissa?
Sorry, I'm here. You can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to first comment on the combative. I want to say that I do not take that personally, and I understand my personality. And at times, persons will perceive me as combative as a lot of things. I understand that I am a strong, independent, single female parent. So I understand that, and nothing, I don't take offense to it. But what I want to say is that as a guest on this platform, and I want to kind of bring it together.
Mm-hmm.
The topic was education. Yeah. And we cannot speak about education in one way. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think we understand that by now.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone gave their take on education coupled with their experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how and I remember making the point that Bronfenbrenner said that there's a person in the middle and all systems are important in forming the individual. So if theories and psychology is there to tell us how important other things or other factors involved in education, then why fragment it? You understand what I'm saying? So yes, I understand Felix's point of view. I understand everyone. But we still fail to realize that, yes, you can have an education system, which is just a policy, a paper, a shell that says, hey, you have to learn maths, English, science, social studies. You have to learn all these things in order to get to this level. Just like in psychology, there are levels that you have to pass in order to become a functioning human being. So how can you take education without thinking of the individual holistically? So when you talk about education, and why I'm so vocal on it, is that I have seen where we have been one-sided in our thinking and thinking, oh, all we need is to get to a loan and get to education. But what happens to those that were not born able or into families that can access these things? What happens?
Mm-hmm.
But they
Mm-hmm.
have
What you're saying.
a fire within them to get better. There are women, there are boys in Dominica that wish they had a chance to do better. I am talking about boys who think that they don't have a chance anymore, because guess what? Getting up in the morning, mommy didn't have what it took to get them to school that was supposedly free. So yes, I understand that you think I'm combative, but I'm combative because we are not seeing the before education.
Yeah, and I think
still jumping to university level, but how do we get to university level if we have not dealt with those that are not able to access primary?
Yeah, and it speaks to the amount of work that we as a society have to do, Melissa. So I'm really happy that you're raising the importance of the social constructs that we live in. Dr. Glean, Felix, you want to make any comments on the Facebook Live? Because I also want us to talk about, things such as the 529 plans. And what are your thoughts on that? And what ideally, if you had to advise anyone right now in terms of approaching education, what would be the best approach for funding their education? I think Dr. Glean, you already started about talking about, going to the local colleges instead, taking online classes. That way you don't have to pay any of those overhead costs. But what are some of the other options? Because I think, like Melissa is alluding to, we have to provide inspiration to those who are less fortunate, who think there is no way that I will be able to even advance to a university degree level. So how can we provide hope and inspiration even for those that think it is not possible? So Felix, let me come over to you, and then Dr. Glean, I will come to you.
So just a quick, you mentioned 529. I think that would be on Dr. Glean's side.
Yes,
for the
that's
529.
yes.
Okay. So I guess you want me to talk about what would be available in Canada to
Yes.
understand. Okay. So as far as the post-secondary education goes, college and university, um, there's the RESP, Registered Education Savings Plan, which I touched on earlier on today. Um, you put money into it and the government matches 20%, and based on the income level as well, you get an additional amount of money. So that is something that I make my clients from the different levels of income apply for. Every single one of them apply for it. There's the Canada Education Savings Grant, and then there's the Canada Learning Bond, which basically helps the low income individuals. The low income individuals, they do have other tax credits that they get. And whenever they actually have kids as well, in Canada, they do give them like a monthly benefit as well, you know. So Canada has that benefit, which I mean, it would probably be a good thing that could actually work in Dominica as well. I'm not aware that Dominica has anything like that, but again, it does go to like if the government can afford it, if the resources are there for it, you know. So I know in Canada we do pay a lot of taxes. Taxes are high, so the government tend to afford a lot of things. Like we even have free healthcare in Canada as well, right? So the RESP is really what the best form of saving for education is for post-secondary education. In Canada, the elementary school and also the secondary school is free, you know, so they don't have to really save much for that except for like buying the basics like clothing, you know, food and so forth. Which I mean, they do get a benefit for those things as well, so that helps. But in addition to that, there's also the private schools, primary school levels and also secondary school levels has private where there's actually some very high fees, because I do have one of my clients who actually has two of her kids go there, and it's a lot of money. It's about like, I think it's over 10,000 Canadian dollars a year, you know, to send their kids to school. When I was back in Dominica, I can't remember school ever being that expensive. You know, I did see the fees, but I can't remember it ever being that high. But for the most part, I remember that my very last year of primary school, it was in Massac School, which is a public school, and there's no tuition fees there. So as I was saying before, I know that the majority of primary school and secondary schools is free in Dominica. I know that I had to take care of my college education down there, but I know that it's not the tuition part. I think that's really the issue, just because most of it is free. It's the other part that comes with it, like what Dr. Glean was saying as well. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for giving
Well,
us the information for anyone out there in Canada. And I'm sure you'll give us your contact information. So, Dr. Green, let me come over to you because I want to present you with a case scenario. So, I'm a parent. I have about 4 years before I decide I'm going to go to university. And I also have a small child that I'm hoping to get to university at some point. Based on all your experience and your expertise, your best advice?
Yeah, I'm going to take a step back if that's okay with you,
Yes.
Simone. I've mostly listened. So I'm going to speak purely from a Dominican perspective.
Thank you.
Why can I do that? Because I've had 30 years of experience interacting with Dominica specifically among the other islands. So to speak to some of the concerns Melissa raised, what can you do? You're not born with a gold spoon in your mouth. You don't have it made. You have that child. Attend the PTA meetings. Put extra time. Back to Felix's point, put quality time into that child. Make your children the diamonds in the rough to overcome the financial deficits that they face. Prepare that child with a chip on his or her shoulder to know, like some of us were taught, you have to be twice as good because you weren't born with a silver spoon in your mouth. So work harder, discipline them so they understand that their best chance to succeed is to do well. Yes, you may not have money, but you do have time and quality time that you can invest. In the same way, in preparing that child to take advantage of all that is there, primary, secondary, if it's free, get that child ready. When that particular child is ready for university, I will speak again in specific and very personal terms from a Dominican perspective, what that child can be. So let me give you two examples, and I will actually use real names. They're now my little brothers. I can use their names. I've known them for 30 years. Dale Nesty, Dr. Jenna Joseph. Two of them, Simone knows them, very tight friends of mine. But they were once my student recruits, both from Dominica, both from different economic circumstances. One young man from Mondana, another one from Goodwill. I stayed at both their houses. I know them really well. They both came to university. Both achieved extremely well. One is very, very, very progressive as a business person. The other is a scientist, with a doctorate. But they were both little boys from Dominica from different circumstances economically. Let me go further. 2 years after they came up in 1993, I had a bunch of little girls who came up that time. Little girls from different economic circumstances. Okay, they were all bright. Parents didn't have a lot. Some parents had a little more, but I had them all. And guess what? I'll name 6 of these little girls who came up from different schools. That's Dr. Simone Mathieu. I'll give her her right name, Senhouse Mathieu. Dr. Gilda Nesty. Dr. Gina Leta. Dr. Masilda Vital. Dr. Catherine Polidor. I hope you catch my theme. They didn't all start the same place, but with their ability, their hard work. I may be missing Dr. Desiree Del Sol in there as well. With their hard work, they all achieved at the level of the rich kids. And look at them today. And not only those with doctorates, I can go to a lot of others, the engineers, the teachers, the other successful students. And that was from one class, 1995-96, of young people that had one little session and came to the States and did remarkably well and are in their own way contributing to Dominica. So my point is, it shouldn't matter too much where you start, although it does have an impact. There are equalizing factors. It is important, though, to recognize that sacrifices are being made and were made by male parents as well. Let me get personal for 30 seconds. I came out of school with a PhD and started working, and I had this dream. I wanted to buy an Audi A4. But you know what? Like all young men in their 30s at the time, I wanted to drive a nice car. But I recognized that I had a child that was growing up for whom the education relied on me. And I was over 50 before I finally got my hands on that Audi, because during those years, the important thing to me was to sacrifice. Yes, men also do sacrifice to make sure that that child had the best education I could provide. So it isn't a monolith, although I fully accept that a lot of burdens are placed on the custodial parent, which is more likely to be the mother, and a lot of the pain and horrible pain is felt by single mothers. Certainly, the way to address that circumstance is, as has been done in the US and Canada, is to address it through the law, is to hold the male parent accountable, such as mandatory child support. And that exists in the law. I know a good friend of mine who will probably be able to advise, if you want to have that program, parents, single mothers, on where their rights are in holding the male accountable. I mean, I can call my good friend, she's a judge, I'm sure, at Wynan Roberts, a very good friend of mine. Hi, Wynan, she's listening. Is one of those people who is a strong advocate from the legal side, who will certainly make you aware that you are not completely powerless. You do have recourses to hold the father accountable to responsibility, at least up to an age. To speak briefly then, Simone, to the point of what to do when you have that young child, is to start grooming and nurturing. You can let them be aware that their contribution to their education is through their dedication and excellence. You help to minimize the cost when you bring strong brain power to the table. You help to minimize the cost when you bring a good work ethic to the table. So children today, they're sharp, they're brilliant. This, even at the age of Melissa's baby, they can do incredible things. You can, and I like that she shares the reality and the pain.
Yes, I was about to say the same thing.
They become part of the equation. Too often, I have found that children from parents who enable them or who have a little more resources have no empathy at all for the parents. I find myself championing the cause of parents, often saying, but why would you take 3 trips home in a year? That's thousands of dollars you're putting on your mother. I know you're not paying for it, but it has to be paid for. So again, I digressed a little bit, but you're preparing to go to university. You want the best for your child. One lady called, and I respect what she's saying. She wanted that information. That information is yes. You do all you can to get the kid in the best position academically, because that's what triggers university resources and assistance. That minimizes costs. There will always be some investment made, whether it's from the university, the government, someone will pay for it. Education is not free at the tertiary level. Very seldom is. It can become free at the higher levels. You do well in that first degree. Simone and I can tell you how you can get to be doctor someone like Simone, and the university will pay for it. We can get you there. But there are people like myself who are willing to sit, and I'm in Dominica every year, and have this conversation. I have Zoom sessions all the time for students where I will be happy to do one for parents in that situation. Simone just set it up. I will be happy to come in and spend all the time and help parents understand how to build and structure so that their kids can have access to the many opportunities in the US. And I'm sure Felix will join me on that as well, in the US and Canada. So it is not impossible, but early planning does matter. And a lot depends on the young person's willingness to work harder to earn. I say this, to earn everything that is available. People do not give you scholarships. They make scholarships available and you earn those scholarships. So absolutely, I'm positive that it's not as gloomy as it seems. I'm going back to the 90s when I brought poor people's children to the US and watched them succeed. I'm certainly doing it now. It's possible. Just believe.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Dr. Glean. And you just gave me 2 program ideas. So I wrote them down quickly. So, we'll get into that in a little bit. I know you're super busy, but at some point in the future, we will get to them. Melissa, you have any thoughts?
Yes, I do. I always have thoughts, Simone.
And before you do, I just really want to thank you for bringing the reality on the ground to us, because I think it is absolutely important that we hear the reality on the ground, what parents are struggling with, what single parents are struggling with, what are the thoughts that they're thinking, the reality that they're facing. And I'm really happy you were able to bring that to us today. So your thoughts, because our time is quickly
Simone, when I'm going to stick to my last thought while you were speaking. A lot of time we love to bring awareness too. I want to put it out there that Women of Unique Distinction is currently in Dominica. If anyone out there is interested in actually stepping in and being that bridge for the children of Dominica, then you can contact me. You can contact me on 767-613-6560. You can also find us on Facebook, Women of Unique Distinction. Please, because guess what? I come on these programs. This is not the only program. I'm on programs here in Dominica and in Trinidad. When I'm in Trinidad, I have my own live show, everything. And we talk a lot. But nothing has changed, because guess what? Those who are comfortable are not willing to take out of their comfortability to make someone on the ground whose perspective they just don't understand. And like Boy from Trinidad, one of our champion Trinidad artists, he says most people fear what they do not understand. We live in a place that's labeled the slums and the hoods, and people just look down on us. But guess what? If people understand that, yes, we are the ones that rise crime because you are not paying attention to us. You understand what I'm saying? So it's bigger than coming and just listening and giving my perspective. What happens after? Are your listening audiences across the board? Those who are Dominicans and living abroad, are they willing to step in and say, hey, I'm going to call the school. School, how many book lists do I need to cover? That is what we need now. We no longer need discussions or awareness. We need persons who are abroad and can't step in and say, hey, I know you don't know about that program that you can go and drop your uniform list, but guess what? I'll cover it for you. That's what we
But let me also ask you this question though, Melissa, because I think what Dr. Glean was alluded to is what can we do on our end, right? So we know that the system is not working in our favor, but he's talking about building our children to a point where they're able to potentially get scholarships in the future. So what can we as the
haven't been
single
listening.
parent
I
do
have
to empower our children so that we don't have to rely so much on external factors?
Simone, the truth and reality is what I've been trying to bring people to understand is yes, you and I have educated ourselves and we can understand what is being said here, but there are a lot of persons on the ground who cannot understand because they were not given the avenues of understanding through
But
education.
shouldn't we empower them to know what they
They,
can do?
you're not letting me finish, Simone. How do we empower them without first addressing where they are mentally? So here's where I come in as an NGO. If you need any sort of mental health
Right.
services, you can contact women of unique distinction, women, single female parents who understand what I am saying and you are just tired of explaining. You can call me and we can find avenues. You understand? Because sometimes, Simone, what I am getting is that people still tell persons you have to find a way, but what if their mental processes cannot allow them to see a way?
Right.
So here is where women of unique distinction will step in and help them first deal with their current situation that will allow their mental processes to start working so that they themselves can find a way. You understand? So it is bigger than just saying, hey, go do this and go do that. Sometimes they need to sit and unpack their trauma in order to get to a place where they can speak and they can find avenues because trauma blocks a view, the
Absolutely.
view of getting out, of getting help. So what I am saying is that yes, I understand finances, I understand all of these things, but women, if you just need to clear your head and you just feel so stressed and you just need someone to speak to, you can call me as well. I will offer my services at the office in Roseau at Gina's Pristine Health and Wellness. So you can contact either myself or you can contact Gina and she will get on to me as well. And I will offer those services because I know sometimes your mental health prohibits you from even accessing education. Randy mentioned earlier about how we are supposed to be as parents. But let me tell you the truth. If a mother or a father is frustrated and do not know how to cope and how to, for me, I know how to dance. When I'm stressed, I know to tell my kids, mommy is very stressed right now. I can't deal with it. Please, can you go in the room? And I turn on music and I dance and I sing my lungs out. And that's how I release my stress. My daughter threw down so much farine today all over the place. And that would send the average person who is dealing with all other issues off the wall. You hear of parents hurting and damaging their children every day because guess what? It's not because they hate their children. They cannot manage the stress, the mental health. So this is just as important as going to school and learning writing. Yeah. So we need to start. I keep saying we need to start looking at things outside of how we grew up, outside of because I had to do that in order for me to sit here today. Because when you dig up my history, you would see I did not grow up not having. You understand what I mean? I did not come the Williams, the Blandins in Rio Claro, in Trinidad. My family is a family that we have doctors, dentists. So I had no choice but to get to school and be something with or without a child. Their children now don't have that support that says you have to be something because I am something. They grew up in a home that their father was a drug dealer and died on the block. So they have no role model. So what do we need? We need Dominicans who are not afraid, who have gotten up there and not afraid to come back down and say, hey, brother, talk to me. That's what we need. So
Yes,
yes, Felix, it's more than money.
yeah.
It's time, but quality time.
Yes, and I want to thank you for that. And our time is quickly speeding along. But I just want to end because, there's so much information out there, and I want to make sure we share as much as possible. So I posted on the Facebook, there's a resource called Scholarship Informer that tells about scholarships, well, in the US at least, scholarships that may be available. And I didn't even know that you can actually apply for scholarships retroactively. That means you're past your education and you're still able to cover expensive retroactively. So there's always new and emerging information. And that is one of the reasons I like doing this program, because we can continue to look at how certain fields are evolving and what is changing and how we can benefit from those changes. And I have one last question for the panel. I know that one of the things we're seeing now is that so many companies are struggling to keep so many employers are struggling to keep their employees. And one of the ways that they can keep their employees is by being willing to pay for their education. So those are some of the things that we can think about. But I want to ask you, Dr. Glean, Felix, everyone, should it be part of corporate responsibility to have these large corporations pay for the education of their employees? Because we're seeing now that many of those, well, not many, I've seen a few instances where large corporations have paid for the scholarships to send an entire high school graduating class to college. I've seen situations where, a college class is graduating and someone comes in and it's a big deal because they're going to pay off the student loans of all the students. But should that be part of corporate responsibility? Should it be this big thing that we're making a big deal out of, or should it just be a part of corporate responsibility? Dr. Glean, what do you think?
Well, if we had the corporate structure and the economic muscle, again, I'm trying to keep this relevant to Dominica, then certainly I think it would certainly be a corporate responsibility for those who make millions off the poor. They certainly can put something back in. It's not an obligation, but it certainly would be a good thing. Just to sidetrack a little bit, one of the things that does happen, you alluded to, Simone, is that there are responsible people. I'll give you an example. And again, to keep it real to Dominique, I'll use real names. A good friend and colleague I've worked with for many years, Dr. Don Peters, frequently calls me and points out when he sees students from needy families who are excelling, and he would call and say, well, my boy, I want you to help me do something for this kid. And he's a good kid. Give me the background. Tell me what the limitations are. And then we have quietly worked together to help many of these students over the years. And I'll go to both sides. Just today, I was speaking to another good friend. Again, I don't want to be political. We're good friends. I get to acknowledge my good friends, Dr. Vince Henderson. Vince always has been, over the last 30 years, in touch with me, 25 years or so, making sure that I look out. And if he finds a person in need, he points it out. One such student, a Dominican student, I was able to offer a full, complete tuition and fee package to. Again, not room and board and everything. The kid starting online is a young lady from the Kalinago territories who would fit, that bill of an excellent student who absolutely, may not have been born with the silver spoon in her mouth. And I can call her name. Her name is Tasha Tyson, but she was academically excellent. That child got herself on the radar. She's a young female who wants to be an engineer. And I was happy to be part of that equation once she was identified to me by the folks in the college and elsewhere, to have her on path to now come to Western Illinois University with free tuition as long as she maintains her excellence. So people will notice when a kid is that diamond in the rough. Once the parent, polishes that rough stone and gets it to that point, we are responsible enough as a community to acknowledge that that child came from a disadvantaged background and do everything we can. Everyone loves an underdog, and we try to push and we cheer for the underdog. And so I hope that that is part of our social conscience as a people in Dominica and the rest of the region. It certainly has been part of mine. It's what motivated my work. But now to your question. Sorry, Simone. Yes, even in little Dominica, we can get, but it would be more altruism, because what happens, again, me keeping it real, is when that young person gets to the States, it's very difficult to get them back, Simone, of that estate, to get them back to Dominica, because then they become very Americanized after 27 years. I think you're much more American. You spent most of your life here than you are Dominican in that sense. So that's maybe one of the considerations that would limit their ability to invest at that level. Right, Felix?
Yes,
Yep.
Felix, your thoughts. Oh, and before we do, because we're running out of time, Dr. Glean, how might someone get in touch with you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you want to put my email in the mix,
Yes.
it's r dash, not underscore. It's r dash Glean, Glean, at wiu.edu. And certainly, yes, I'm very open to it. But I will find myself to Dominica before too long. And when I'm coming, I will let you know so you can get it out there. And yes, once I'm there, I will be happy to sit with parents or groups of parents and help to do, an awareness seminar,
Yes, thank you so much, Dr.
including
Glean.
single moms and especially single moms.
You'll meet with Melissa. Well, she'll be in Trinidad,
Absolutely.
but she'll come back.
Absolutely.
Yes, Felix, your final thoughts as we wind down for the night.
Well, my final thoughts. I do want to just give a lot of credit to Melissa with representing the single mothers as best as she can, and also with Dr. Glean as well. He did bring some really good points, and I actually learned a lot from you too, Simone, especially with that. You mentioned the like the retroactive scholarship thing.
I
If
never
I
knew
could,
about that.
yeah, first time I'm hearing that, so I go in and see if that could actually um help with me as well. But you know
Mhm.
what, one thing I do want to take away, just knowing that a lot of people do have difficulties as well. I think all of us struggle in some kind of a way, whether it be financially, mentally, or even health wise. Um, I've seen a lot of people who actually did, come out from nothing, and they do make something of themselves. I think one of the things that is really like mostly important is building the mindset of our society, you know, because really and truly, if you really check it out, right? Just look at the jungle where there's a lion which is actually, recognized as the king of the jungle. However, the lion is not the biggest animal in the jungle. An elephant is much bigger than a lion, right? It could crush a lion like nothing. The lion is not the fastest. A cheetah is faster than a lion, right? It's not the tallest. The giraffe is taller. So if you ask yourself, why is the lion the king of the jungle? It's really because of the mentality of the lion, right? The lion not going and say, oh, my mother and father couldn't do this, so I not go and do that, or I cannot reach wherever, or I'm not capable of X, Y, Z, right? Most of the people who actually make it in life are people who actually came from nothing, right? And if you really check it out, I mean, I don't know if anyone listened to any kind of reggae music, dancehall music, rap music, but a lot of the artists actually talk about coming from nothing, rags to riches stories. So, I mean, it's really if you actually have the type of mentality to say, hey, you know what, no matter what, I'm going to make it, no matter what my circumstances are, even if I was born poor or whatever circumstance you were born in, as long as you actually tell yourself that you can, or you believe in yourself that you can do it, don't think it's going to come easy. There's going to be resistance for anything great that you're going to do. Anything great you're going to do, there's going to be resistance. I face resistance a lot. At 25, I basically decided to leave the corporate world and actually start my own business. Most people actually asked me if I'm crazy, what I'm doing. But the thing is like I believed in Felix more than everybody else, thank God. And I also believe that God guiding me up until today. So it's not to say that I had it easy at all. Trust me, I've had my sleepless nights. I just still have them every now and then because like stress comes to every single one of us. I don't think anyone actually has a problem-free life. I think as you actually move through life, your problems change. If you're actually growing, I think you're going to be getting better problems. But I don't think there's anything as a problem-free life. All right. But anyways, that's just my little takeaway for today, and I hope everyone learned something from each and every one of us. and have a good night to everyone.
Yes, and remind us of your company and how we might get in touch with you.
Okay, so I can be reached on Facebook. If you search for Felix Thomas Jr., you'll find me. Also, if you go on Instagram and you search for the Financial Doctor, that's me. Yeah.
Yes, and I posted your email address, felix9144@gmail.com. Again, Felix, FELIX9144@gmail.com. And I also posted Dr. Glean's email address as well. So you have it, r-glean@wiu.edu. I got that right, Doc?
You got it right. And of course, you
Thank
can
you.
just post www.wiu.edu. Simone, I'll take 5 seconds. I need to shout out my brother, David Vital, of course, my good brethren from back in the day, works closely with me and has worked closely with me for many years in helping to facilitate students going off to study. And I have to shout out my rebel brother, Brian Linton, one of my former students as well. Much love, Brian. Always my boy.
Yes, thanks, Doc. Melissa, your final thoughts?
Well, I'll just like to give my information again for
Yes.
single female parents in Dominica. I will be here until September 10th. I need to run to Trinidad and organize my ID so that I can come back and actually assist single female parents continue to, because since my IDs are not with me, I cannot, but I can offer my services. So contact me at 767-613-6560 if you need any sort of mental health services as a single female parent. Also, Women of Unique Distinction will be offering after school services come the new school term for the Trafalgar area and the Goodwill area. So also you can contact me for those information. Of course, because it is cost free, there are limited spots. So I cannot take everyone. But for those, it's a first come, first serve basis. So make sure and contact me for your educational support come the new school term. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to the panel. I think this was a very fruitful discussion. I want to thank you for your contribution, as always, to our programs and for just taking some time off, because I know you all are incredibly busy with the work that you do. And I just want to thank our listeners on Q95 Radio, the big station, for being with us, as well as everyone who made a contribution via the Facebook Live program and the YouTube channel. And again, don't forget, you can follow us on Facebook at Q95 FM Radio, as well as Push Past 10, and on YouTube on Q95 FM Radio. And for all the best in programming, you can always jump on Q95DA.com for live programming, as well as past episodes of the program. And before we leave this evening, I just want to give a quick update on the Dominica Child Protection Society program that we recently started, the movement to stop sexual child abuse in Dominica. You know, our interactive reading program is going very well. As you know, we're using Dr. Shamina's book, and Dr. Shamina was actually on CBS Mornings. She was on CBS Mornings on Wednesday. So an incredible opportunity for her to go international. And so far, we've used her book as a tool, an interactive book. Her book, If You Touch, I'll Tell, to educate and empower our children. So far, we've had 4 interactive reading sessions, and we want to thank the Ready, Set, Go Summer Camp, the Girl Guides Associations of Dominica, the Cultural Division, and the Big Sister, Little Sister Summer Mentorship Program for allowing us to be a part of their programs and to empower our children to use their voices to stop the scourge of sexual abuse against our children in Dominica. So we have a lot more to go. So if you're interested in joining the movement, don't forget, you can always email me at pushpast10@gmail.com, pushpast10 @0.com. So as our time together comes to an end, again, thank you to the panel. Thank you to our listeners. Thank you to our Facebook contributors. And we will continue to be here each and every other Wednesday, every second and fourth Wednesday, as we continue to tap into our Dominicans, friends of Dominicans, adopted Dominicans. We tap into their expertise to talk about issues of national and personal importance, and to provide inspiration, to provide hope for our young people, that, the potential for mentorship, so that they can take the information that we're sharing this evening and they can create their own path to success. So again, thank you all for being here. You have yourself a pleasant evening, a good night's rest. Until we see you guys next time. Our next program will be September 14th. Melissa, go put that baby to sleep. Thank you for your commitment. And you have yourself a wonderful evening. I am Simone Mathieu. Until the next time, take care. Unmute your mics and say bye.
Okay, bye. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you, Glean. Thank you, Felix. Thank you, Melissa.
Okay, you're welcome.
Bye, baby.
Bye.
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 Simone, in that list, I forgot Tabitha Andre, Dr. Tabitha Andre.
Oh, you forgot the
all the details of my students.
He'll
just as
forgive
part
you.
of that.
Dr. Andre, please forgive Dr. Glean.
Yep. I had it written down.
Yeah, have a good night.
Oh, oh, children, home.